Hello and welcome to my video about new pond syndrome. So in this video I'm going to show you what I do with the new pond syndrome sort of thing and what it means to me. So I'm going to start off by testing this water. So the first test I'm going to start with is the one that sort of just wants me to get to know this pond really and how it's going to perform in the rest of the tests and how I think it's going to mature. So let's get on with that one. So this is one of the few tests that I do that doesn't include the Hanometer. This one that I'll be using now is a KH test kit from Sarah, and it comes with a little tube to put your water in and a little chemical to put in your water to get the results. So let's get on with it. Now, why do I test the KH of the pond? Well, the KH sort of tells you how the pond's going to mature. So if there's 0 KH in the water, then your pond just won't mature at all. Because the actual bacteria that process ammonia and stuff like that use the KH to grow. The KH becomes part of their skeleton as such. So it's very important that they have KH. So let's see how much KH we've got. This is actually a really easy test to do. So I've got my syringe full of pond water and I'm going to fill this up to 5 millilitres. Like so. And then you take this little bottle of chemical, whatever's in it, give it a bit of a shake and drip them in. So one turns yellow. Give it a little shake. Blue. So now I just keep adding drops until the water turns yellow, and that gives me my KH result. Let's try the 6. Yeah, 6 did it. So there we go, yellow. So my carbon hardness is 6. And that's how easy it is to find out your carbon hardness with that test. And most carbon hardness tests are similar to that one. So what this tells me is that my pH level in this pond is going to be really stable, above 5, and you've got quite a stable pH. So when I test for that, I'll know exactly what it is and know where it's going to stay to. I know that the filter is going to mature really well because of that, and the ammonia bacteria is going to come in really fast and be good. If this is any less, what I'd do is I'd add bicarbonate, and that'd bring the KH up. So there we go, that's KH done. So for this test I'm going to test pH, and I'm going to be using the Hanometer. So I fill one of these little tubs up to the 10 ml mark. You can get other pH testers that are just as accurate really as Hanometer, but I prefer to use Hanometer because it gives me a number value. And then what we'll do is move over to the Hanometer. So that's the sample with the reagent added for the pH. And the meter's on 0, so all I'm doing now is put that in there, like so, and press read, and it should give me the reading. So my pH is 8.2. So if you look at the actual table shown on the screen now, you'll see that a reading of 8.2 on the pH and the temperature is 18 degrees gives me an ammonia maximum of 0.4 milligrams per litre. Well, I can tell you it's probably more ammonia than that, so we're actually in a bit of an issue. I'll get to testing the ammonia shortly, but obviously because I've been feeding the fish heavy and that, they'll have more ammonia in there than that. So I need to sort of really reduce the pH. It ideally wants to be around 7.5, somewhere around that region, so I can allow the milligrams per litre on ammonia to get around the 2 mark safely. So there we go, that's the ammonia reading. The ammonia reading is 1.24 milligrams per litre. So what does that tell me? Yes, there's a huge amount of ammonia in this tank. However, there's 172 fish in there as well that I've been feeding quite heavily for the past week, with basically no filtration because it's brand new. One thing I need to do is get the pH level down to below 7.7 to be able to keep the fish alive really at that ammonia level. They'll be fine, and they are quite fine if we're going to have a look at the fish. They'll be fine at that ammonia level. Quite happy little fish, no trouble with them. But they'll not be fine for a huge amount of time, and that's why I keep on top of it, I guess. So there we go, that's the nitrite reading of 0.16 milligrams per litre. So what does that tell me? Well, my ammonia is 1.24. So that is quite a high ammonia level. So the ammonia gets turned into nitrite, so that should result in a fairly high-ish nitrite level. Realistically, the nitrite level wants to be below 0.2. However, due to the high ammonia level, it should be a bit higher than that. And we'll see over the next period of time that come up as the filter matures and more bacteria comes in to process the ammonia into nitrite. So that kind of tells me that the filtration is starting off, but not yet running, and not yet anywhere near the capabilities it needs to be running at. So yeah, that doesn't really tell me much at this moment in time, but the filter isn't working properly. So we know that I need to manually keep the ammonia level down, and it's not going to do it on its own. So we know the nitrite on this tank is really low, and that just means the filtration is not working currently. So the pH is really high, and what am I going to do to reduce the pH? Well, basically I'm going to give it time. I'm just going to let it reduce itself. The thing that keeps the pH stable and high is the carbon hardness level. Obviously it's 6 in this tank, as we saw earlier. The ammonia, the bacteria that process ammonia will use that carbon hardness to create their skeleton and live and process the ammonia. So they will use the carbon hardness, which will then in turn drop the pH. I know what you usually tell at this point when you get high ammonia levels is do water changes. This worst thing I could do right now is do a water change. If I did a water change right now, it would not reduce the ammonia probably at all. It would increase the carbon hardness, it would increase the pH and just make the ammonia more toxic to the fish. Because, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, doing a 50% water change does not reduce your ammonia by 50%. It just doesn't. No idea why, it just doesn't. So that's just one of the things you've got to live with. So I'm not doing any water changes, I'm just going to let it mature and just keep an eye on it, make sure everything's working okay. And if it gets ridiculous, then I may take some fish out and put them in another tank. We'll just see how we go on, I'm not sure yet. One way you can reduce your, or the only way you can actually physically reduce your pH, in my opinion, is a reverse osmosis filter, or RO filter. That would take all the carbon hardness, or most of the carbon hardness, out of your water, out of your tap water. That would significantly reduce your pH. Unfortunately, I don't have one of them. That might be a good thing to have right now, but I'm not going to buy one for the fortnight of this treatment, just for this, and then never use it again because I just don't need it. So there you go. That's what I'm going to do about the pH, is exactly nothing. So, you might look in this tank and think, wow, there's a good bunch of happy little fishes that are all quite active and moving about quite happily. So the water must be great, it's clear, smells okay, and there's not really any signs to be any issues. But that's not really the case. The reason why it's not the case is because there's a lot of fish in this tank, and the more fish there are in a tank, the more friendly the fish become, and then also feeding them. If I stopped feeding these fish, then they'd get really depressed, and then they'd start to flake and be upset and that. But because I keep feeding them, like so, it keeps their attention, it keeps them happy and that, and they're not really worried about ammonia issues and stuff like that. So there you go, that is the ammonia level, 1.98 milligrams per litre. And you might be thinking, wow, them fish were really excited for food and really happy to get food and look really well, but they're in a toxic level of ammonia that is potentially poisoning them. Now, they are, because I don't think the pH level has dropped, we'll find that out in a bit. but these fish are that happy just because there's that many fish and I keep feeding them. And you might say, well, why do I keep feeding them? Well, that was sort of once a day sort of feed, so I'm only feeding them once a day at the minute. And because of that, they're just getting just enough food to stay alive, and it sort of wouldn't have any effect on the ammonia level anyway than what the fish themselves would do. So you might see that the actual meter's flashing 8.5. That means that the pH level has gone over range of the actual manometer. Now this isn't what I was expecting, to be honest, and it's really not a good thing, because I really needed the pH to be at least 7.5 at this moment in time, not 8.5. So there we go, 8.4, that's what my pH reading is in the morning. So that will probably be 8.5 or something this afternoon. It does fluctuate throughout the day, so that's one thing. If you're having pH problems, you should monitor it throughout the day to make sure that you know what the average of the pH is, and that way you can sort of figure out whether your pH is actually a problem, because it might be a problem during the night, it might not be during the in the morning. So you can tell my pH is actually quite stable at that really high level, and I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to sort of let the filtration system kick in and bring it down on its own, and hopefully that works out. We'll see in a future video when the filtration system starts up. I'll do another video on Neupon syndrome when the filter's working. This video I covered it well, there's no filtration at all. One thing I like about Neupon syndrome, I'm not 100% sure if this is true or not, but it's sort of what I've experienced with Neupon syndrome. When I've got a load of new fish in like these, they could come with any sort of parasites or whatever, you never know. However, I never seem to have parasite issues when I have a new pond. So these fish, that could have just been a coincidence, you never know. I'm not sort of sure about this sort of thing. Maybe somebody knows more about the effects of ammonia on parasites, but it seems to me that when I have high levels of ammonia like I do at the minute, the chances of having parasites are significantly reduced, and that's one thing I quite like. It just sort of puts my mind at ease. If I have, like next year, this pond will be all well matured and well set up, and if I do the same again, put in 172 new little fish, then they'll be fine, the water quality will be fine, but they might have problems with other things such as parasites and that sort of thing that they're brought in, and that's just one thing I don't expect to get when I have high levels of ammonia, because it just never seems to happen for whatever reason. So there we go, this video was sort of covering how I have treated this tank for Neupon syndrome. It will be completely different on your tank. The chances are it was just some of the things I keep an eye on and monitor. If you have any questions specifically regarding your tank, then put them below and I'll try my best to answer them. If I'd have done this exact same thing for the other two tanks I have at this place, then they would have had a huge amount of problem. I had to add carbon hardener to them, as their pH was exactly the opposite and dropping really low. I don't know what's different. It's the same type of filtration system, it's the same type of fish, small loads, and it's the same tap water. So what's changed between 2 years ago and now, I have no idea. But that's just how it is. So if you get set in one setup, if you did this last time, there's no guarantee it's going to work this time, and that sort of thing. You have to keep on your toes with it and just make sure you're doing the right thing, or you could end up with a load of upside down floating fish, which is never a good thing. So there you go, that is this video. There will be another one up shortly that talks about when my filtration starts to work and what I'll be doing then, and hopefully my pH is reduced in that video. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I shall see you in the next one. Any questions, put them below. See you later.